Hello there, this is Mary from your Greek translation. Today, we're diving headfirst into the amazing world of language learning. But we're not just scratching the surface, no, we're going a step further to explore the intricate workings of our brain when we endeavor to learn a foreign language. It's truly a fascinating process, one that intertwines with our cognitive abilities, our memory, and even our emotions. In the following minutes, we'll walk through the key steps that our brain undergoes in this learning journey, from the initial exposure to a new language to understanding and memorizing its nuances, and then onto the all-important practice phase. Each step is crucial, each step is unique, and understanding them can revolutionize the way we approach language learning. So fasten your seatbelts as we embark on this fascinating journey of language learning. First things first, let's understand how our brain is wired for language learning. Now, the human brain is a marvelous piece of machinery. It's complex, intricate, and quite the multitasker. When it comes to language learning, certain areas of the brain play key roles, which we'll explore today. At the front of the brain we find Broca's area, named after Paul Broca, a French physician who discovered its function. This little region is like a language production factory. It's responsible for the grammar and pronunciation aspects of language. When you're trying to nail that tricky French R sound or figuring out where a verb goes in a sentence, you can thank Broca's area for doing the heavy lifting. Moving towards the back of the brain, we encounter Wernicke's area, named after Karl Wernicke, a German neurologist. This region is your comprehension hub, decoding the meaning of words and sentences. So when you're listening to a Spanish podcast or reading a Japanese manga, it's Wernicke's area that's helping you understand the content. But how does the brain know how to do all this? Enter Noam Chomsky, a renowned linguist who proposed the concept of a language acquisition device, or LAD. This theoretical device, Chomsky suggests, is hardwired into our brains, giving us a natural ability to understand language rules. So when you're learning a new language, it's like your personal LAD is kicking into gear, helping you navigate the complex patterns and structures. Now, the brain isn't just a collection of isolated areas doing their own thing. These regions work together, like a well-rehearsed orchestra, to process language. They communicate and coordinate, ensuring a smooth transition from hearing or seeing words to understanding them, and finally, producing them. So, in a nutshell, our brain is beautifully equipped to learn languages. It's a complex network of regions, each playing a pivotal role in helping us communicate. Whether you're a seasoned polyglot or just starting your language learning journey, remember, your brain is an amazing tool, ready to take on the challenge. Now, the first step in learning a foreign language is exposure. So, what does this mean exactly? It's all about immersing yourself in the new language through various mediums. Think about it like this. When you're a baby, you don't start speaking your native language right away, do you? No, you listen. You soak up the sounds, the rhythms, and the patterns of the language. This is what we call exposure. Now, how can we mimic this natural process when we're trying to learn a new language? Here's where books, music, movies, and conversations come into play. Let's take a closer look at each of these. Reading books in the foreign language can be a great starting point. Even if you don't understand everything, you'll start to recognize patterns and common words. You'll begin to understand how sentences are structured and how the language flows. Listening to music, on the other hand, can help familiarize you with the sounds and rhythms of the language. Plus, it can make the learning process more enjoyable. You can start with simple children's songs and gradually move on to more complex lyrics as you improve. Watching movies in the foreign language can be a bit more challenging, but it's an excellent way to improve your listening comprehension skills. Plus, it can give you a glimpse into the culture and everyday life of the people who speak that language. And lastly, conversation. This is where the magic happens. By engaging in conversations, you're actively using the language, and this is when you really start to internalize it. It might be a bit scary at first, but trust me, it's the fastest way to learn. So, by exposing yourself to the language through these mediums, you're creating a rich linguistic environment that mimics the way we naturally learn languages. It's a bit like planting a seed. With enough exposure, that seed will start to grow, and before you know it, you'll be speaking the language with ease. Remember, exposure is the key to kickstart your language learning journey. Moving on to the next step, which is understanding and memorizing. Now that we've been exposed to the new language, it's time to delve deeper into how our brain starts to comprehend and store this newfound linguistic knowledge. Let's start with understanding. Our brains are marvelous machines, capable of recognizing patterns and making connections. When we learn a new language, our brains start interpreting the sounds and symbols of this foreign language, trying to find patterns and similarities with what we already know. This process of pattern recognition is what allows us to start understanding the new language. Now let's talk about memorization. The star of this show is a little part of our brain called the hippocampus. This is our brain's memory powerhouse, responsible for storing all our new information, including the new words and phrases we're learning. Here's where things get interesting. The hippocampus doesn't work alone. It relies heavily on repetition. The more we repeat a word or a phrase, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. Think of it like a path in the woods. The more you walk on it, the clearer and more defined it becomes. That's exactly how repetition works in our brains. The more we use a word or phrase, the stronger its neural pathway becomes, making it easier for us to recall and use that word or phrase in the future. But memorization isn't just about repetition. It's also about making connections. The more connections we can make between the new language and what we already know, the easier it will be to memorize. That's why relating new words to images, stories, or feelings can be a powerful memorization tool. So understanding and memorizing are not separate processes, but two sides of the same coin. They work together to help our brains make sense of and remember the new language. So understanding and memorizing are crucial in making a foreign language a part of your cognitive arsenal. Next, we come to an essential step in learning a foreign language, which is practice. Imagine you're learning to ride a bicycle. You've got your helmet on, you know how to balance, and you've learned how the pedals work. But you'll never truly master the art of cycling until you hop on that bike and start pedaling. The same principle applies to language learning. You can grasp all the grammar rules, memorize the vocabulary, and understand the pronunciation, but it's practice that'll make you fluent. Now, practice isn't just about repeating words or phrases like a parrot. No, it's about using the language in a meaningful context. It's about speaking, writing, and even thinking in the new language. Let me explain why. When you're practicing speaking, you're not only getting your tongue used to the new sounds, but also training your brain to think on its feet. It's a bit like a live concert where you can't afford to forget your lines. And the beauty of it is, the more you speak, the more comfortable you become with the language. Writing, on the other hand, gives you time to think. It allows you to construct sentences at your own pace, experiment with different words, and play around with grammar. It's like your personal language laboratory, where you can test out what you've learned and see how it works. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, is thinking in the new language. It might seem a bit strange at first, but it's an incredibly effective way to make the language second nature. It's like moving from the passenger seat to the driver's seat. You're no longer just reacting to the language, you're actively using it. So, whether you're ordering coffee in French, writing a letter in Italian, or thinking about your day in Spanish, practice is your golden ticket to fluency. It's about making mistakes, learning from them, and growing more confident with each word you speak, write, or think. Practice, as they say, makes perfect. To wrap up, let's quickly summarize what we have learned today. We explored the fascinating world of our brain and how it processes language. We discovered that exposure is the first step in learning a foreign language. By immersing ourselves in the sounds and structures of the new language, we give our brain the chance to pick up on patterns and familiarize itself with the unfamiliar. Then, we move on to understanding and memorizing. Our brain starts to make sense of the language, linking words and phrases to meanings. This is where memorization comes in, as we start to store and retrieve language information more efficiently. Finally, practice is key. It is through repetition and use that our brain truly internalizes the new language, making it a part of our linguistic repertoire. So that's all for today. Remember, learning a foreign language might seem like a daunting task, but with the right approach and understanding of how our brain works, it can be an exciting and enriching experience. This is Mary from your Greek translation, signing off. Happy learning!